Are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to WETA's Board of Directors meeting. This monthly meeting is being conducted in person and by video conference that is being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and muted during discussion. WETA welcomes comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@watertransit.org or by using the raise hand feature found under reactions. If you're unable to send an email, you will be given an opportunity to speak on the item after those who've signed up. WETA has a closed session item today, so with the approval of the Board of Directors, I propose moving item number 12, public comments for non-agenda items, ahead of item 10, recess into closed session to give guests the opportunity to provide public comment for non-agenda items without having to wait through the entire closed session meeting. So with that, we'll give the, am I audible pretty well? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, if not, if it turns out because I'm doing this remotely, if it turns out I'm not doing a great job of it, I would ask Vice Chair Moyer to take my place and run the meeting. But if it's okay, you just let me know. And if it's okay, I'm fine doing it as long as you can hear me okay.
Sounds good.
I won't
Chair,
have
we
a
need
long...
to call the roll.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, can we get yeah, thank you. See, I'm not doing that well. So go ahead, Thomas, please call a roll.
Chair Wonderman.
Here.
Vice Chair Moyer. Director Alba. Director Del Bono.
Here.
Director Dew. We have a quorum.
And Chair Wonderman, this is Steve Miller, just noting for the record what everybody in the room knows, which you are participating remotely under the Just Cause exception in the Brown Act teleconference requirements, which we're supposed to note for the record. So we have just done that.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it very much. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I don't have a long report. I'm doing this remotely because I had hip replacement surgery a couple of weeks ago, so I'm recovering from that. So that's the major reason that I need to be home at this point. But I know it's been a busy. I know it was a busy summer. It's been a pleasure to see. When I was riding the ferry before I had the surgery, I was riding quite regularly and noting the increased number of passengers all the time, and some really full boats. And I know it resulted in some challenges to the service that we've been going through. And my hope is we can discuss some of that today and make sure that we're on track to miss as few runs as possible and recover as quickly as possible and maintain our reputation as a first best-in-class provider of transit. At the Bay Area Council members meeting yesterday, we put up a slide on transit recovery, and it was a pleasure to see WETA at the very top of the list in terms of recovery. So we don't want to do anything to put that at risk. Quite to the contrary. We want to see it. What would it take to get back to 100% pre-pandemic ridership, which I believe we'll ultimately get to. So with that, let me turn it over to my fellow board members. I'll start with Vice Chair Moyer, and we'll go down the list of board members and get your comments. Director Moyer.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. I just wanted to comment for the record, my appreciation with your effort today and joining us. I know it's been a week for you or so. Thanks for pushing through and being here today, because it's an important day. And thank you all for...
Thank you for covering for me last month as well. I really appreciate it.
It's always my pleasure. I do want to thank all of you for coming out today. The city is hopping. I work in Salesforce Tower. For those of you that don't know, it is a zoo. Let me just say, I can always tell by how long I have to wait for my coffee. I'm quite spoiled. I don't like waiting for my coffee, but it's crazy out there. So it's really lovely to see. And hope it's been that way since Labor Day, with or without Dreamforce. So hopefully it will, all of that will hold, but some of it will hold. So looking forward to seeing how we can continue to be best in class in our operations. Really grateful to all the hard work that's gone into that, and looking forward to the discussion today. And so anecdotally, just continuing among my clients to see that concerted effort, ranging from sort of please come to the office to you will come to the office or there will be consequences, and seeing how that is trickling through. So it's a little bit early to see what the consequences will be and how they play out, but definitely seeing more people in the office and feeling the effects of that. So looking forward to that ricocheting back to all of us and impacting our service loads. Thank you. That's it for me. Chair.
Thanks, Director. It's a pleasure to hear about how busy the city is. And I put a call into Salesforce today to say, don't think of moving the event outside of San Francisco, that we're all working on the challenges that Mark Benioff put forward, and that, having, hosting the Dreamforce is really critical. And so anything anybody can do to reinforce that would be really great, because it would be a huge loss for San Francisco and the Bay Area if Dreamforce were to move somewhere else. And conversely, will be great if if we can keep it here. Let me go to Director Alba.
I'll keep it very short. It's great to see you, Chair Winderman, on the screen, and hearing. Hopefully, we'll have a smoother recovery going forward. I also want to thank staff for being so transparent about the mechanical failures that we've had in the recent weeks, and sharing that information with our riders, and so that they are aware of what's going on and what our plan of action is. I think the way we communicate with our riders and region, it's tremendous. And no matter what hardship we're going through, we're being transparent about what's going on. And I think that's really, really important, and our riders are appreciating it. So thank you.
Thanks, Director Alba. Director Delbano, congratulations on your reappointment. Well
Thanks.
deserved. Wouldn't know what to do without you.
Yeah, got it underneath Atkins, so that's good. So thank you, Senator Atkins. Also, good luck, Jim. I hope the recovery works out well. And I've been riding the ferry a little bit in the last couple of months or so, a little bit more than I usually do, and it seems like it's working, it's happening, and some of that's been on the weekend too, and it's been busy. So thanks.
Thank you, Director Du.
No, thank you. Nothing to report, but do wish that you have a speedy recovery, Chair Wunderman.
Thank you. And once again, let me thank the entire board for the work that you've done and what you're doing and the work ahead of us. I think it's so important that this water transit system thrive and survive and move forward. And with that, let me turn it over to our great Executive Director, Seamus Murphy, for his comments and report.
Thank you, Chair Wunderman. A couple of items that we wanted to touch on in the Executive Director report. First, let me introduce some new members of the WETA staff. We're continuing to grow and add organizational capacity to be able to do more, which is a great thing. We have recently hired a digital communication specialist to work in Tom Hall's group. Lexi Matsui has joined us. She's coming to us from a trade association that represented a number of electric cooperatives, electric power cooperatives around the country, an advocacy organization in Washington, D.C., where she was the senior multimedia producer. And she's going to work with us to help enhance our communications, marketing, and customer communications, social media content by adding a bunch of graphics expertise and digital production expertise to everything that we do. So we're looking forward to seeing that roll out on our various channels of communication over the next several months, and happy to have Lexi on board. Lexi is here in the room if you want to wave. Thank you. And then also have a new planning intern in our planning department. Nolani Fixler is joining us, and Nolani has got a great resume. It looks more like a seasoned transportation professional than a planning intern for sure. She's vice chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Commission for the city of Berkeley. She was the lead senior transportation network management intern for UC Berkeley Parking and Transportation before coming to WETA. She's earned a number of awards throughout her career so far, and has a lot more, I'm sure, coming forward. She is most recently awarded the Women in Transportation International Molitoris Leadership Scholarship Award, and that's an award that she'll be formally receiving on September 20th at the WTS dinner, where WETA will have a table, and hopefully members of the board can join us there to celebrate that. I know members of the staff will definitely be looking forward to celebrating that. Nolani is here as well. And then add my thanks, or my congratulations rather, to board member Del Bono for his reappointment. I understand there was a number of community stakeholders and advocates from around the region, organized by some of our strongest advocates to really communicate to the Senate Rules Committee that this reappointment should happen, and be hard to have you on board for another term. Looking at the ED report, we have ticket validation changes that we wanted to report on. We do have a new process that we've put in place recently to help smooth loading and unloading of riders. And Raphael Regan is going to give us a summary of those changes and how they're going so far, and some things that we might be able to do to refine them moving forward.
To educate riders and smooth the process at a handful of our terminals, most notably Oakland, Main Street, Alameda, and the Vallejo terminal. Additionally, WETA staff were on site week 1 of implementation to observe and assist GARs and crews. As an agency, upon continuation of operating this new system, We've seen pressure points surrounding the updated validation process dissipate for crews and riders as we become more familiar with this process. Nevertheless, WETA staff will continue to communicate with crews to find solutions for improvement and will continue to develop materials to help educate new riders as we refine this crucial touch point of the rider experience. So thank you for your time. I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Next, I just wanted to touch on the financial statement, obviously first month of the fiscal year that we're reporting on, so still a long way to go. No trends that are emerging, but we have seen lately that fuel prices are rising. We were out of the woods after the spring when we saw those fuel prices relax significantly and get us back on budget after a little scare that we would be significantly over budget, and we're seeing those prices start to creep back up. So we're still under budget, but we're very early in the fiscal year, so we're closely monitoring that. There's not much we can do about it, but we will keep the board appraised of any issues that emerge and any concerns that we have about fuel prices. Federal update, good news there. If you read the federal report, we have a $3 million congressional spending request that was successfully added to the appropriations bill in the House, thanks to Congressmember Garamendi. That supports the Vallejo reconfiguration of the Vallejo terminal project. That's a $16 million project, very early preliminary total project cost there, but $3 million being added to funding sources to support that project would be a great addition. There's still a long way that needs to go through the federal appropriations process. We need the appropriations process to be completed. There's some discussion about a continuing resolution that would last for the duration of the fiscal year. And if that happens, then we would miss out. There would be no congressionally directed funding requests in any appropriations bill in that case. But last year, you'll remember Congressmember Garamendi was successful in getting us a request added to the bill for the addition of DPF filters on board our vessels. And so hopefully we'll see the same result from this request. Then moving on to the monthly operations ridership and recovery report. I'm going to ask Gabe to come up and give us an update on ridership. And in this report, we've evolved to include all of the data, historic data on our reliability, on-time performance, mechanical failures. We have seen that become an issue sporadically, and it's sort of a when it rains, it pours situation, because we have just enough spares to be able to cover service issues and mechanical failures and recover from vessels that break down. But sometimes those spares, sometimes vessels are out of commission for longer than anticipated. Sometimes we need to do maintenance on vessels and dry dock those vessels because of scheduled services that are unavoidable. And so that leaves us short of vessels sometimes. And that's something that we need to, that we are always trying to monitor and prepare for. And we have really good performance, on-time performance percentages compared to other transit agencies. We'll see that in the report, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with some of these disruptions. Go ahead, Gabe.
Board of Directors, Gabriel Chan, Station Planner. So just kind of a quick update about the more going forward. We've added a new component, which is the on-time component, and that's because starting in January of this year, new data report swiftly that basically allows us to have more reliable data, that on-time performance reliability as well as adding that component. And then in terms of ridership so far, we've closed out FY23, and we year over year did about 30% better than FY22. And that's mainly driven by strong ridership on the Vallejo and routes. And then we continue to outperform the other regional operators as we report. And then in terms of how we're doing so far this year, August, we've come down a little bit from the highs of the summer as expected. And staff moving forward are going to continue to update every month what we're doing in comparison to the FY24 budget. So every month we've kind of put out a report about where the budget projections are and where the actuals came in. And as of now, we're doing about 30,000 more riders than expected July and through August. So we're overperforming the budget projections, which is great news. Weekends continue to be really strong, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are our strongest days. Then kind of one point also to mention is that the South City ridership has been the only one that's been about flat moving so far, and our fare box recovery on that route has dropped. I'll turn it back over to Joe and operations update. Thanks.
Good afternoon, directors. My name is Joe Ramey, and I'm operations analyst in the operations division. This is month 3 for me, so I'm excited to be with the agency. I'm going to run through a quick presentation here. I've been tasked with analyzing on-time performance and reliability, and so I'm just going to run through what our team has been working on. All right, so the operations division has developed an Excel-based tool to track ferry on-time performance and service reliability. The tool utilizes daily vessel arrival and departure data generated by Swiftly. So that's WETA's real-time vessel tracking system. So it's all an automated system that tracks all the vessels' arrivals and departures. The performance tool allows WETA to enhance the ability to monitor and analyze on-time performance and reliability over time and in depth by route, vessel, date, and other parameters into identify opportunities for further improvements to the system, and monitor how performance compares to other major public ferry operators nationally.
I'm doing the board meeting for WETA.
Operators locally. So a couple of key performance metrics and definitions. So on-time performance, we're defining as the percentage of total trips that arrived early on time or less than 5 minutes after the scheduled arrival time. Service reliability is the percentage of scheduled trips that were operated after adjusting for trips canceled. So that's actually, of the scheduled trips, how many were provided. A late trip is any trip that arrives 5 minutes or more past the scheduled arrival time. So we're looking at comparison to other ferry operations just to see how we're stacking up. We looked at these 6 kind of public ferry operations nationally and locally. We're completely open to the board adding others or any suggestions you have about expanding this group. But right now it's Golden Gate Ferry, Washington State Ferries, Kitsap Transit, Staten Island Ferry, NYC Ferry, and Massachusetts Bay Authority Ferry. This graph just basically shows year-to-date number of trips that were provided on time and compared to those that were canceled, and then delayed arrivals over 10 minutes late and delayed arrivals 5 to 10 minutes late. And what this graph is really showing is that overwhelmingly 97% of the time the trips provided were were either on time early or arrived within or after 5 minutes, within the 5-minute window that we're looking at. So no later than 5 minutes past the scheduled arrival time. This graph just shows the percent of on-time trips by route, weekdays and weekends, just to show the kind of consistency across the system. For different, weekdays, weekends, and then average weekly. And what it's really showing is, generally across all routes and day types, the system is performing consistently at about 90+% on time, with the average being 97%. There are some variations. Vallejo weekends, for example, are a little bit below the average, as well as the South San Francisco routes, and we are digging in to kind of tighten that up and look at the causes for those. This next graph is percent of total trips on time provided and canceled by month. So this again just shows you kind of the monthly, instead of just the year to date, but actually how we're doing every month this year, January through August, and again showing that about 99% of the trips have been provided and only about 0.8% have been canceled on average throughout this period. Again, that percent of trips on time is 97%. So you can really see that it's, you know, consistent month to month is what this graph is showing. All right, so on-time performance and reliability by month, January through August. This is just a table format of that previous graph, just showing you the kind of the consistency every month across, you know, for every month and for the year-to-date averages, which have been, again, 97% on time, 99% of the trips scheduled were provided, and only about 0.7% have been canceled. All right, this last chart. So this is on-time performance, kind of how we measure up against those selected comparables in terms of on-time performance and reliability, percent of scheduled trips that were provided. And what we see is we're actually outperforming most, on average, most of the other ferry operators that we selected, which have averaged around 93%, with WETA being at 97.3. We're in the ballpark for the average in terms of reliability, both WETA at 99% and the other scheduled trips, the other ferry operators around 90% as well. In comparison, looking at just BART and Muni, I pulled that data, and AC Transit were of course much higher than those, about BART being about 69%, Muni at about 83%, and then AC Transit at 74%. So still highly reliable, highly on time compared to other modes of transit. So kind of just to bring it all home, summary of conclusions here. So WETA's on-time performance and service reliability remains consistently high from month to month in 2023 since we've been tracking this data in depth. The year-to-date on-time performance has averaged 97% system-wide, and year-to-date service reliability has not averaged 99% system-wide, with less than 1% of total trips, which is really great. On-time performance is generally consistent for weekends and weekdays and across routes, with minor variations from month to month. WETA has similar, if not higher, levels of on-time performance and reliability compared to other major public ferry operators analyzed. And WETA's year-to-date on-time performance averaged 97% again, compared to 93% for the other selected ferry operators, and with similar levels of reliability compared to the other ferry operators, both at around 90%. So this slide talks a little bit about common service disruption causes and responses that generate cancellations, delays, and here to talk about some of the kind of reasons for these service disruptions is Aiden Anderson. He's the operations manager with Blue and Gold.
Good afternoon, Aiden Anderson, Operations Manager, Blue and Gold Fleet. Yeah, so just to give you some background on some of the common contributing factors to service disruptions and what we do when these occur. So the first one is mechanical issues, which we do have, mechanical issues. And the response to a mechanical issue really varies. It could be something simple that could be resolved with a phone call to an engineer. Our captains have some engineering knowledge, so some of the stuff could be resolved right on the fly, and that would only result in maybe a minor delay. Of course, it could be a serious mechanical issue that could take the boat out of service. In a case where we have to take a boat out of service, there's a lot of factors and a lot of variables. If the boat happens to be at a terminal with only one side, it could have a domino effect and affect other services because another boat can't get in until that boat moves. In some cases, the boat has to be cleared by the Coast Guard before we can return it and remove it from the terminal that it's at. And then, of course, our response to save service and resume service is to get another boat, another vessel and crew out there to take over service. By doing that, what we do to do that is, in some cases, it works out if we have a crew that's coming off service or a crew that has a break in the service and they're able to jump right in and pick up. It'll result in a delay, not a cancellation, but it doesn't always happen that way. Yeah, we do ask crews to work overtime, stay late, come in early sometimes when we have vessel issues, and they do. They do work with us and help out there. So that's one of the things that really saves us. Okay, moving on from mechanical. Sick calls. to run weekday service, we have it takes almost 100 crew members for a regular weekday standard service. So, and we start as early as 4:15 in the morning. Our first shift start at 4:15 in the morning. So, if we, people get sick, if we get a last minute call or a call in the middle of the night, we have dispatchers at the office able to take phone calls up until midnight, and then they're back at 4 a.m. So anything that comes in between those hours goes to voicemail, and you get the red light when the dispatcher comes in the morning, and they get on the horn and work really hard to get someone in as soon as possible. But that sometimes sick calls, do cause delays. Same thing, crew member injury or illness on the job. Doesn't happen a whole lot, but it does happen. Not only crew member injuries, but there are sometimes passenger injuries that occur. Some are minor, but they'll take, if it's a passenger injury, the crew has to go down and tend to the passenger, make sure they're taken care of. Sometimes it's minor and it's first aid, a Band-Aid. Sometimes it's more serious. And sometimes in very severe cases, we have to call paramedics. So that's something. Weather, obviously, weather can affect service, tide, current, and weather is predictable, but it's not predictable. We keep an eye on the weather report, and we have multiple apps that actually give us updates. So we know when bad weather is coming in, but sometimes all of our apps and what we're seeing on the news is not accurate. So when we know bad weather is coming in, we do, we foresee it coming, we do a scout, kind of a scout boat. We'll have a boat go out early and check the conditions and see if service is possible. And for the most part, that helps us out. And we could get a good grip on if we're going to be able to run service that day. But sometimes the weather just changes, and it could be something as much as a boat pulling up to a dock and realizing that it's just not safe for dock. So weather has a big effect. And then these two are just kind of something, the domino effect. Obviously, it's kind of what I was describing with the mechanical issues. Sometimes with one boat having a service issue, if a boat's stuck at a dock, for example, Richmond, one side of dock, we have a boat stuck there, the next boat can't come in. So that next boat is going to have a delay as well. If the vessel, a lot of our vessels are interlined, so that means that it's not only this boat does Alameda, Oakland all day. This boat does Alameda, Oakland, then this boat does a South City run, then this boat does a Richmond run. And that's an efficient way of doing it to get the most out of each crew, vessel, and schedule. But of course, that would cause, if one service is affected, multiple services may be affected. And then there's always a communication window. Anytime there's an issue, there's protocol. The captain calls in the issue to dispatch, and dispatch, dispatches the phone call to the appropriate person, whether it's a engineering issue, they get an engineer on the horn, or it's something that requires law enforcement or paramedics. There's always a communication window. We always do our best to not cancel right away. So once there's an issue, we like to try everything we can possible without having to cancel a run, and that causes that communication window. Phone calls take time. The troubleshooting a problem takes time. So,
Available to take any questions that the board may have on the presentation and data analysis that we.
I would just care to comment. I appreciate the presentation very much. Seamus and I have had a lot of discussions about it. I think this was a comprehensive look. I'm pleased that you've kind of set up the data to be able to look at this going forward. I was prepared to ask the hard question of how we compare our performance versus other ferry systems, and then you beat me to the punch with that last slide, which I appreciate. So, it looks like overall we do well. I think we're in one of those kinds of services where, anything less than 100%, unfortunately, is very noticeable to the few vessels that get impacted. Because it's hard for the folks who are impacted to find another way. And so they're sort of lost at the ferry terminal with, without great options, and then they have to wait, and, it's very impactful. So, you did a good job here in these last couple of slides, describing what the causes and effects are, and what some of the actions Blue and Gold takes to try to minimize the disruptions and make adjustments and so forth. And, just based on what you said, I think it's worth looking at, how we move the needle. We're never going to make 100%. But, how do we go from 97% to 98%? How do we materially reduce the number of delays and certainly missed runs, and what could we do with our workforce, to make a midnight, call that somebody's sick or unavailable, how do we lessen the impact of that? So, again, though, I appreciate looking deeply into it and bringing it forward as part of the monthly presentation so we can discuss it, and then tracking our progress. So appreciate it very much. I don't have anything specific to suggest, just, I think attention to it will be very, very helpful. Other directors who'd like to ask questions or comment?
I have a.
Maybe we can pull down can we pull down the slide? And so we can see you guys. So I can't see.
Sorry. Yeah.
Jim, it's Jeff. I'm going to ask a question.
Go ahead, please.
It's more on the passenger, probably a question about passengers. So great job. Thanks for all. It was very informative. Thank you. What happens when we cancel at the last minute to our passengers? Like what actions do we take? How do we try to write it or whatever? So like BART, you wait for another train, but if the ferry gets canceled at the last minute, what happens at that point?
Yeah, and it is different. We don't have the luxury of frequency that BART has, and so it impacts our passengers more than it does their riders, and we recognize that. And so there's a few things that we're doing to moving forward to make this less impactful. One of those, as it relates to the passenger, is to offer some kind of benefit to them, whether it's free rides or free concessions on board, something that'll make them understand that we acknowledge that we've impacted their day-to-day life and convenience. We're supposed to make their lives more convenient, not less convenient. And so when we don't do that, let's do something that for them that will be meaningful. So Tom's team and I are working. That looks like there's probably something that involves using the monitors on board the vessels to have a QR code so that we can identify those riders who were impacted. When there's a run that's missed and there's passengers waiting in line to get on board a vessel that actually doesn't leave, a lot of the times we'll end up just making that trip free and put covers over the clipper readers and allow people to just have a free trip, because we acknowledge we shouldn't ask them to pay something that is 40 minutes later. So that's unique for a transit agency. Not everybody does that, and we're trying to be unique in how we respond to those issues. And then if I could just add that Aiden and the Blue and Gold team do a tremendous job focusing on recovering from these issues as quickly as possible. I think the data speaks for itself that they do an incredible job of doing that. They care about this, and they hold themselves accountable for these kind of issues. That's become apparent. And they also have no really pride of ownership here. They want to know if there's something that they could be doing better. So we said this in a press release that we issued on this topic a couple of weeks ago. We'll be doing an independent review of our engineering and maintenance program to understand if there's anything else that we could be doing to minimize these mechanical issues. And that's largely what we're talking about when it comes to breakdowns, is mechanical breakdowns. Very, very few of them are operator error related. Most of this is just equipment that fails. We understand it's going to happen. We be doing anything on the maintenance side. See what the results are of that. And then the other thing that we'll be doing constantly is making sure that the one thing we could do is make sure that people know about a disruption as soon as possible so that they can make alternative. Don't want to keep this in our back pocket, just hoping that we get back onto schedule, hoping that we can get have a trip that isn't delayed, hoping that a trip doesn't get canceled. If there's a chance that a trip is going to get canceled or delayed, let's just let them know as soon as we know, so that they can prepare accordingly. The app does a tremendous job of that. The actions happen almost immediately when we know, and we have a new text message based notification tool that will be in place for people who don't use the app so that they can take advantage of that.
Great. And again, I appreciate all that. And I think the crew safety, passenger safety, but I like the last part of like, after all that's taken care of, what are we doing?
Yeah, this was great to see, and it's fantastic to see the on-time performance and reliability. It seems like August, something was just like there were a number of events happening in August. Was it related to one or two specific boats, vessels, or was it across random mechanical, electrical failures?
I think there was like 4 or 5 vessels affected. It's in the report. In the memo. Yeah, there were like, I think 60 different issues, mechanical issues across the board. All mechanical.
Thank you. This is really helpful, and Gabe and Joe, I appreciate the analytics that you're bringing to the table, and the ability for us to now kind of create a trend line and follow it going forward. You know, I wanted to follow up on the question that Director Alba just asked. I don't know how long you've been in your role, but in your experience, like what we've just seen, are you seeing this? Is this normal, like a normal experience, or? Okay. So today, as you stand here, what's your level of comfort going forward? I don't think I was asking you. Oh, it's fun. Go ahead, Tim.
In addition to some of the mechanical failures, we've had some dry docks that we've pushed out as much as we can. So what we'll do is we have every 2 years, we have to dry dock our vessels for Coast Guard certification. So what we've been doing over the last 6 months, in addition to the dry docks and some of the mechanical failures, we've had some ongoing projects that we've been trying to accomplish. One being the Gemini class conversion and some upgrades with the vessels on just our normal capital program. So because we've had limited vessel availability, we've been trying to push out those dry docks as much as we can, and we requested the Coast Guard to do that. There comes a point after a 6-month extension where they just can't do that anymore. And so in addition to some of the mechanical failures, we've had some of the routine dry docks that we've just had to do in order to keep the vessel with an active COI so we can keep it in service. And there is some mechanical issues that we're dealing with on the man engines that we just installed in the Gemini class. We always have issues when we install and build out new equipment. And so we're kind of working through those tweaks right now. And there's some issues that Jeff's working on every day that we're trying to clear up with those engines. And also on the Pixis class, we're having some gearbox issues. We just ran a pretty in-depth vibration analysis. We had a company come out from Florida to try to figure out what's going on because we're seeing a trend in some driveline failures. So we're hoping to get that report here shortly. And that'll kind of guide us, and that should help with the reliability once we get those 2 issues fixed. So it's the Pixis class and the Gemini class where we have this inherent problem that really close to figuring out what it is. And once we do, we'll have a program in place to repair it.
Very reassuring. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, thanks. Seamus, anything?
sorry, Jim.
Sorry?
Just on the, I didn't realize he was done with the ED report. So I just wanted to comment that I'm super excited to see the Bay Ferry 6 exercise coming up and the participation with the Fleet Week tabletop exercises. So thank you all for participating in that. I unfortunately am not able to attend the October meeting, but I'll be waiting with bated breath to see how it goes. So or to a proud showing. But thank you for making that. As busy as you all are, thank you for dedicating the time.
Absolutely, and you are all invited to witness the Bay Ferry 6 exercise. If you're interested in doing that, Lauren will be in touch with you to talk. If there is interest.
When is the sea change going to become seaworthy?
Good question. I'm done making any promises about any dates for when the sea change will be ready to go. The team has been making progress. I can tell you that. They're zeroing in on some issues that are unrelated to the hydrogen propulsion, but related to the software and some other equipment on board the vessel that should be working fine, but isn't. And we've been pushing very hard on the company responsible for making sure that that equipment works. And we've let them know that this isn't a commitment that is just going to hang around forever for us to operate this vessel. They need to get it working very soon if we're going to be able to demonstrate this.
Start charging a parking fee over there at Pier 9 and you'll see action.
Good idea.
Okay, any other questions for Seamus and the team? If not, hearing not, let's move on to the consent calendar. So we've got 6 items, A through F on today's consent calendar. Does anyone wish to remove an item for further discussion? If so, any member of the board wish to have an item removed?
I'll make a motion to adopt consent.
Okay, let's start with the consent calendar. Let's have the consent calendar. Is there any member of the public who wishes to move something? I think you have the right to ask for that. Okay, if not, let's take Director Delbano's motion on the consent calendar. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second for Director Du. All in favor, say aye. Or I guess you got to call the roll, so go ahead and call it.
For Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer, Director Alba, Director Delbono,
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
The item passes.
Okay, thank you. And again, thanks Vice Chair Moyer for running the last meeting. I read the minutes and they're more interesting than the meetings I normally run, so I appreciate it. Item number 7, award contract toward Scylla North America Inc. for fleet electrification and systems integrated services.
Hello, members of the board. Tim Hanners, Operations and Engineering. Today, the item before you is to recommend the board approve the contract to Wärtsilä North America for fleet electrification and system integrator services, and authorize executive director to negotiate and execute an agreement and take any other related actions to support this work. We've actually prepared a presentation for you that John Green is going to give. He's the principal for Aurora Marine Design. They will answer some of your questions you may have on what a system manager can do for us and give you an overview of our questions. We do have a lot of our team members here on Zoom. So we have Dave Adams from Wärtsilä, Senior Sales Manager, and Ellen Junk just joined us for the permitting. That being said, Sean.
Tim, Sean Green, Principal, Aurora Marine Design. Wanted to initially just sort of give us a recap on exactly what the electrification program looks like. I know a lot of people have seen this, but let's give a quick refresher on it. Still planning on 4 phases of electrifying the WETA fleet. As battery electric vessels go, we're really focusing on phase 1, 2, and 3 of the stage. Those phases, ultimately the fleet will look something like this. We have phases 1, 2, 3. We're looking at 6 new and converted large vessels, 10 new and converted medium vessels, 5 brand new small vessels, and probably most importantly, 12 new converted charging. So those sort of form the hub of the system. Currently, we're looking at just phase 1 and 2. That's sort of the low-hanging fruit in the whole system. So that's going to consist of 2 new large vessels, 3 new small vessels, a new universal charging float, and converting one of the existing floats to electric float. Service the inner central bay to Alameda. I'm going to focus a little bit on the universal charging float here because it's such a piece of the system. Historically, the floats have really been just a dumb piece of equipment. They're just a mooring and embarkation structure. They're going to transition now to being actually the hub of the electric system. So they really are the centerpiece. Key thing here, when we look at the existing float and the new floats, basically look identical. The reason behind that, we're doing our best to actually minimize the changes, the environmental footprint and everything. Building a few small charging areas here and maybe some infill underneath the decking. Really can't tell the difference. The float itself, the tricky part about these floats is we're trying to have to accommodate a small vessel, but the requirements as far as energy goes, large vessel, bigger batteries, charging system that feeds both of those, accommodate all of those vessels, plug into either of them, provide the necessary energy for it. See the center of this float here, we're actually cutting away this intersection, firefighting, power electronics, battery energy storage, and one end of the floats. This float has now actually become, now housing quite a bit of mechanical and electrical equipment. So why do we need an electrical integrator? This is all very new technology, particularly here in the US. Has been done overseas, but this is all very much emerging technology. So standards available for it yet that are completely developed. So each one is very much a bespoke sort of situation with those. So electrical integration at this level is really beyond the scope and expertise of naval architects and marine engineering firms. We've done our best, and we're masquerading as electrical engineers these days, but we sort of have our limits, and this really requires subject matter experts and to give WETA the proper risk mitigation. So standardizing the fleet and modularity are absolutely critical to this. We have a scale in the future for the different vessels, so we really need someone that has that in mind and can help pull that together. Last one is extremely important. With any new emerging technology is the crystal ball. What's coming down the pipe? How do we plan for that? Do we not find ourselves in 15 years somewhere where take it all out and replace it? So that's pretty much the. So what does the electrical integrator do? Integrator responsible for specifying all of the vessel charging electric propulsion equipment. They select all the appropriate components. So everything on the side that goes into that float, the charging system, all the way to the propulsion motor in the ferry. On multiple ferries, they're responsible for all that works. It's all plug and play. Selecting an integrator, we had some key criteria going into this. Really want experience, major factor, have a lot of experience with similar projects. Second one is a big one, the agnostic approach. So we really want to in the future and right now leverage the best available technology. Many companies around the world producing lots of equipment locked in. You don't want to be locked into any one equipment. Be able to access and leverage the best from many companies, both in the current and for a firm that really has an agnostic approach that can embrace that technology and fold that in. Need to have sufficient resources. Probably most important. That forms the cornerstone of the fleet moving forward. So going to be around to support that in the future. Regulatory is sort of fighting its way through this new brave universe here, so make sure they have a lot of experience with that as well. And our fleet actually has quite comparatively small vessels. We want to, small vessels means they're very much space and weight constrained. So we want to make sure that we are conscious of that. Very much aware of that because that's key to the success and efficiency. So WETA was actually a standout proposal in the middle of all this. Their proposal had a great emphasis on modularity. Like many of the vendors, they visited the Bay Area, looked at the fleet, looked at the actual ferry service, and I think it was reflected in their proposal. They really understood what we were looking for, particularly all the long-term goals here for future charging hubs and future vessels. WETA had a parent vessel, as did, we actually had 4 of the proposers really had parent vessels, but WETA had a fantastic parent vessel that's operating in Norway, which is similar to, a lot of similarities to our fleet and what we're looking for. So there's a 150 passenger vessel, 27 knot service speed, which is extremely high for an electric boat. Charging power is 2.3 megawatts in the range of what we're looking for as well. They have DC fast charging, which we're looking for. There, over on the right-hand side here, we see a track of the vessel operating in Norway. They actually have a 13-mile round trip. They're charging each round trip. They're doing 9 of these per day. Really aggressive, sort of see on this is called vessel traffic. I think they're actually running this vessel and running it hard. So all this gave us quite a bit of confidence. The next steps moving forward, this is a really complex org chart we try to distill down, but this is the team moving forward. Many of you are here today. So we starting at the top, Aurora, we're sort of pulling together the system architecture, which we've been doing since the original zero emission study a couple of years ago. We have a team for the large vessel with Elliott Bay Design Group involved. The electric floats, being the hub of the system, really requires most of the attention. We have ARIP on board, who's part of the original study, to do all the shoreside infrastructure and sort that out. We have Lift Tech, who is really doing all the structural engineering for the floats. And we have Alan on board now, who is perhaps has the most challenging part of this, which is going through the permitting and regulatory side of it, and getting that up. We also have the local firefighting Global Fire. They're on board here to help us out with the firefighting systems, which are going to be a fairly big task, and that goes across the vessels and the electric float as well. So, and then at Aurora, we're looking at the preliminary design and specifications for the small vessels. Key thing here, the electrical systems integrator rides over the top of this and sort of pulling all these pieces together electrically, making sure they all talk to one another, communicate properly. Up at the top there, we have the IBU, because we had 1 meeting with them. We hope to have many more as this really gets moving for operational input. This is sort of a new world in terms of mooring, docking, charging, and what the deckhands have to do on board, captains. So we want to embrace their input in all of this as well. As we move into construction, some of us transition into construction managers as we go down to the construction phase. And Wärtsilä then actually becomes an equipment provider for the various shipyards once the contracts are issued to the shipyard. So they actually integrate for the shipyard. That ensures that everything that comes out of the shipyard is truly plug and play. Communications correct in the electrical side of things. So our next steps, see a lot of people involved with this, and that doesn't even include the stakeholders on the outside of the main group here. So we're actually going to break up into working groups that deal with separate things like batteries and shoreside electrical, things like that. So that's going to happen over the next few months. We're moving heavily into the front end engineering design. the ultimate goal, producing RFP level drawing packages and getting those RFPs out for construction of the boats and the first vessels. Current schedule for this one. Talk to this. I'll hand this one over to Tim.
So this is our current schedule that we have. This is going to be refined as we get the system integrator on board. We get one of the things we're concerned about is lead time for a lot of this equipment. Done as much research as we can, but now that we're getting into the weeds of it and we're diving deep into the engineering, we're really going to get a feel for what equipment's available, when we could get it, and when we can get these boats into service. You feel fairly confident that we can meet these goals with the small and large vessels. This was the last piece to really kick this off and get moving. And we feel like we've assembled a really, really good team. I think we all feel really good about it. It's something some of the team members have been involved in this for a little over 2 years. Some of them just came on board, but we feel really good about the team that we have. So that being said, this is the current schedule for the 3 small vessels. The universal charging float is a new float that we plan on building so that we can take out existing floats so that we don't cause service disruptions. And as we progress through our electrification plan, we can install those floats one at a time throughout downtown San Francisco and the rest of our remote facility. So that being said, is open it up for any questions that the board or the public might have.
Thanks very much. We can pull down the at least temporarily pull down the presentation unless members of the board or the public have questions about the item. So, thanks for that. Obviously, it's complicated. And I know a tremendous amount of thinking and work has gone into this, and you really appreciate the effort that you're making. When I see Q3 2025 for completion of the first small boat, I think I go back to the last question is when are we going to get the sea change in operation? So I know things come up, stuff happens and so forth, but it does seem to me to be an aggressive kind of schedule, nonetheless one that I think we'd like to try to keep to. And I'm excited to support your work on this and see it through. It's really big, it's really exciting, and it's really necessary. So I'll put aside any further questions and turn it over to my colleagues on the board.
I have questions.
Go ahead, Director Vice Chair Moyer.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you very much. Sean, thanks for coming today. If you wouldn't mind, I wanted to look at the float itself again. If we could look at that for a minute. I wanted to ask in particular about the batteries. I understood that. I can do it without looking at it. But I just really wanted to understand. So if I remember correctly, I think it's ARUP that's doing the infrastructure, the shoreside infrastructure, which would include the floats. And at the end of the floats, when you showed that cross section of it, the next one, Tim, I think, showed the batteries at the end, right? So who makes those? Since they're so wonderfully prevalent for cars right now.
Who makes the battery?
Yeah.
Well, just to back up just a little bit. So the plan is that ARUP would bring the additional infrastructure, the power in, almost like the charging cable in.
Yeah.
And then
So it'd be shoreside power that comes to the end of the float.
yeah, and then Aurora Marine Design, help with Elliott Bay and Wardzilla, then take it over from that point. We consider the batteries and the floats like an extension of the boat. Vital and important. So, and your question was who is going to supply the batteries?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I was trying to understand how the batteries are powered. Who is the manufacturer of the battery, the shoreside batteries to begin with, and then I guess the second part of my question is who's maintaining all that?
Yeah. So to answer the first question, we haven't selected a battery manufacturer yet. Depending on the grant and the Buy America, that we have several engineers right now analyzing what is the best battery for the float, and that's something that Wartzilla is going to also help us out with. We have, we did the study with Beacon too to kind of guide us in the right direction. But as of today, we haven't picked a specific battery or manufacturer that we're going to use.
Is there much choice? Reliably, much choice?
Because of the Buy America requirements, it doesn't give us a ton of options, but we do feel good about the 2 to 3 options that we have available.
I'm asking just because on the automobile side, it's getting to be a huge problem. So I'm just wondering if that's going to translate well to our needs.
I hope not.
If we're going to run into the same sort of shortages.
That's a good question.
Then, so pending this is all built and installed, then
So, I mean, part of this fleet electrification plan is we only had IBU up there, but obviously we need to get MMP, the captains and the other unions involved in this too, but it would be an increase in some staff and a lot of training. We talked to Wartzilla and the other proposals about that too. Part of this program is going to be, we're going to have to train our staff. Just like Sean mentioned, naval architects aren't ready for this. As of right now, things are just shifting so quickly, but there's going to be a huge push to by training for all the equipment. A lot of it is going to be remote monitored, but it is going to require some additional staff.
yeah. Encourage you to study that a little bit when you have the time. Fantastic.
I think I have a related question. So are we committing to electrical and then on the boats?
They're actually need to specify other manufacturers' propulsion so they can pick whatever we deem actual manufacturer. We'll see, very pick those from various manufacturers they see fit. Wartzilla does make some equipment, so but they're not locked into their symbol, just as they did on their other vessel. Assemble sort of the right components for the job.
So for the Norwegian comparison boat, is that Wartzilla or is it other electric propulsion?
So it's Wartzilla integrating it with their system. Maybe Dave will better to answer.
The project in Norway was an EU-funded project with 14 team members. We were selected as the integrator and supplied the grid to the propeller as an integrated pack. All of those components were made by different people. We provided the energy management system, the overlaying, arching software that controls everything. Make sure that's sort of what we're here. When we looked at this project, we knew that agnostic, but when you pick equipment on a vessel, you pick it for the owner, not what you think the owner needs. So we know that a tremendous amount of work had already been done on this project by WETA. So from our perspective, we just want to get into it. We'll advise as to the equipment we think is best. Be a consensus.
So the integration module, what's that?
It's an energy management system.
Energy management system.
It's in fact an automation computer system, and it talks to the batteries and it talks to the propulsion.
Great to hear. There's almost a congratulations on being part of the actual construction of is that right? So Wartzilla is not only an integrator, it's also part of the components that go into.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make that clear that it's both the integration, but also some of the equipment. decides.
So somebody selects an integrator, they're selecting someone who will assume risk. When you have a component supplier, they will only submit risk for their component. You have an integrator, if we advise or we deliver a system ultimately, whether it's our equipment, or somebody else's equipment, Tim has somebody to call. So it's a performance related. That's why what integrators do.
Thank you.
As I recall, the board acted previously to approve going out for the system integrator, that we thought that was the right path. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, I think we had a discussion, as I recall months ago, is that because this is just, we're in such new territory, that we
Yeah.
would need an entity who could, in the most neutral way possible, kind of direct us as to what kind of equipment, what kind, just to answer the questions you've been asking, like how do you get the right stuff that works with each other? Where we run into this conundrum that we've got all this really great equipment that doesn't talk to each other, that, and all of that. So, from a conceptual standpoint, I think we concluded at the time that it made sense to go at it in this fashion. Other colleagues on the board, questions, comments?
One more question.
If not,
And
good.
oh, Jim, this is Jessica.
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Central maintenance facility. Are we gonna have any floats there? I didn't see, or the central, what do we?
Yeah, the maintenance facility at Central Bay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the plan, we're still working on the plan, and that's something Chad Mason and ARUP are developing right now. The plan is to bring in more power and to possibly build out a smaller docking area for some of these smaller vessels, because we are running out of dock space as we add these vessels. So that is in the current plan to.
It's not shown in the slides.
Correct.
Okay, but it is part of the next steps.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see all of this. It is super complex and really fascinating to see all of the components and pieces and how it all integrates. Excited that we're doing phase 1 and phase 2. I can't wait for the technology to improve to get to phase 3 and obviously phase 4 is super exciting for me at some point in time in the future. But I appreciate the report and I appreciate the information, and I'm excited to see us moving in this direction.
Thanks, Director Du. Anyone else comments from the board? If not, are any members, Thomas, or any members of the public signed up to speak on item 7?
Signed up.
I think you said no one signed up, right?
Correct.
Is that correct? Yes. Is anyone like to speak who's present, wish to speak? You can use your hand raised feature, or I can't see you, but someone can see you. Does anybody see anybody? If
Go on,
not,
Jim.
go ahead. So let's take a motion on item 7, please.
I will move, apparently.
Second.
Now, we have a motion, a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono,
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
The item passes.
Super. Congratulations and good luck. We're with you. Item number 8, approve entering into a memorandum of understanding with the city of Alameda and other parties for a harbor seal haul out monitoring camera and right of entry agreement at the Central Bay Operations and Maintenance facility. See, Director Alba, we may not get shore power at Central Bay, but we will get seal monitoring. So you get something.
6 parties, yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, can I assume folks are getting set up to speak? Because I can't see. I only see you guys.
There we go. So anyway, where was I? So the back to this project background, the seals, we created a seal haul out. The seal haul out has been successful. Chad and Mike and I work with many groups all over the Bay Area on all of our projects. By far the easiest to work with the seals in Alameda. And this has just been an interesting and rewarding kind of little effort to go through. Here, again, the 6 groups, in addition to ourselves, there's the City of Alameda, the Technosocial, which is the nonprofit group, and the Alameda Unified School District, the Harbor Seal Monitors nonprofit group as well, and the College of Alameda. And the purpose of having the cameras on our roof is to monitor the seal float, and then that creates data that is fed to the GIS study group that's at Encinal High School. And they use the data to chart this information. So with that, before I introduce our guest, I will say that I was going to use a PowerPoint with cute pictures of seals, but I figured that would be laying it on too thick for such a feel-good item. But I will introduce Andrew Weidla from Technosocial, who will tell us a little bit about the project and how it came to be.
That might be too much as well. So I really appreciate the board entertaining this notion. Thank you very much. I'm Andrew Weidla. I'm an Alameda resident. In my day job, I work at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in a variety of field science and environmental research applications. Really, this is an effort to create more of a participatory science framework on the island and also use it to enhance the education opportunities available to students. I'm also the PTA president for Encinal High School, so there's a lot of things converging here. But really appreciate the board willing to consider this. Obviously, having a camera up there would let us collect a lot of really great data. We want to correlate that data with sort of temperature information, and then we'll be doing AI analytics and image recognition just to count the number of seals on the float, and over time build up a profile of public data that the students can use to do something more interesting than counting park benches in ArcGIS or whatever else they might do. I think it's really important for the high school students to have and be involved in a project where they work on both the data analytics, the upstream processes, but also, frankly, what it takes to actually gather data and operate a sensor system. This is a very simple system. It's literally a Raspberry Pi with a telephoto lens in a camera box. But the use of your power and a small cup of Wi-Fi is much appreciated. So thank you for considering it.
Thanks.
If you have any questions, please.
Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate this. I had a quick question is, do you plan to use SEAL facial recognition software as part of this? Because I'm a little concerned about SEAL privacy.
Thank you. That's actually a very worthwhile concern. We don't have any plans at this time, but you never can tell. It depends on the SEAL behavior, I suppose. Also, the other thing is, yes, there's sort of a 6-party thing that this turned into. At the end of the day, I'm the guy who's going to be like fixing it or removing it, or I'm the person you can call whenever. I live literally 5 blocks from the WETA building, and I can be over there, anytime anyone needs something. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
No question. I was just going to say thanks, and thanks for being a PTA president, because I know that's probably the hardest job to do. But I was here for the platform building, and also lived on the island for quite a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing the SEALs progress.
I would just echo that. I think this is a wonderful partnership, and I think everyone in the room would love to make sure that the SEALs are doing well and that we have a way to track them. So I think this is a wonderful initiative. So thank you for all of the hoops that you went through to get to where you are today.
Really appreciate the staff work and all that. And, frankly, if we do this work with the SEALs, I think the turns are next. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind at least getting some kind of annual report, something beyond a newsletter or something like that. Just
Yeah, no, love to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Other members of the board? If not, are there any members of the public signed up to comment on item number 8?
No one has signed up.
Anyone like to comment?
No, Jim, but I'll make a motion to go forward.
And I'll
Appreciate it.
second that.
We have a motion, a second. Any further comments? If not, please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Chair Moyer, Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono,
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
The item passes.
Okay, sticking with Alameda, item number 9, Main Street Terminal Closure Service Adjustments. This is an information item.
Thank you, Chair Kevin Conley again. This item is precipitated by the closure of the Main Street Terminal for rehabilitation. It's going to close for a period of close to 10 weeks. And we don't have a lot of flexibility on when we can close it. We have to close it within the marine work window. Nevertheless, we are closing it during the winter months, by and large, November and December, with the tail end of October, which should be better in terms of it's a low ridership period of time. And Main Street is one of our least highest, our least rider volume terminals. And there is redundancy because of Alameda, yet it is still very disruptive to close a terminal, especially for a period of 10 weeks. So the memo lays out for you the various rider groups, but I'll just kind of briefly summarize each one. Number 1, there's weekday service to San Francisco via Oakland from Main Street. And we're confident that Seaplane can absorb that ridership base, that we basically only operate service in the middays and the late evenings from Main Street. And we also do that at Seaplane. So, and we don't feel like we're going to overtax the vessels by moving passengers over there. That's really a passenger communication challenge. Secondly, there's weekend service from Main Street to San Francisco via Oakland. That is a very well patronized, high ridership service. It typically goes down during the winter months. But as a result, we are going to schedule one of our vessels and crews from Seaplane and operate direct Seaplane to San Francisco service. Today, we operate 3 vessels on weekends, and there's essentially a morning crew, an evening crew, and a midday crew. And we're basically going to move the midday crew over to Seaplane and have limited, but still a full day's 10 hours worth of service from Seaplane. That should cover the Alameda weekend patronage. Third, there's special event service to Chase Center. Today, we go from Main Street to Oakland to Warrior games, and in its reverse and after the game. This is a limited terms, and there's roughly two games a week, roughly, with road trips in there. We're just going to ask passengers to drive to Oakland and park. There's really no other solution to that. We are limited in capacity at Chase Center. We only have one slip there. We couldn't offer a second service if we wanted to, and still be able to manage the arrivals. So it's basically just going to be an inconvenience for Warrior fans for the beginning part of the season. And then fourth, and probably the biggest impact is to weekday riders from Alameda going to South San Francisco. And those riders, we don't have a replacement for them. Again, that is a fairly small volume of people, as Gabe noted earlier in the agenda. It averages about 30 people on the big days. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, we get about 30 boardings out of 3 trips, so roughly 10 per trip. Our only solution really, and we have 2 solutions. One is to encourage the riders to go to Oakland, and Oakland departures will be the same. And then secondly, we are exploring and we feel confident that we will be able to offer a discount on transit network companies, in other words, Uber and Lyft, to have a free trip from Alameda over to the Oakland service. And that's particularly for the people who rode their bike, for example, and didn't use a car to take the ferry today from Alameda. So that's the impacts to 4 different service groups. Another item that this brings up is it allows us, because the crews are not stopping in Main Street for this duration of 10 weeks, we had some spare time for the crews and the vessels, and we are going to propose a pilot service that operates between Chase Center, the Mission Bay terminal, and South San Francisco. Over the years, we've heard interest from the residents of Mission Bay that there is quite a bit of travel between those 2 locations. There's a biotech kind of connection there between hospitals and technology and residences. And while we don't have the ability to offer really full-fledged commute service, it's a kind of, I'll call it preview service that we're offering, which is kind of a late morning departure, 9:30 to 9:40 trip, and then 2 late evening departures, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. And it's really sort of a wet your whistle type of idea to allow people to sort of explore and try the ferry, and we can get some feedback and some input from potential riders for a future service pairing that we've always been interested in doing. So we're going to operate that during the 10 weeks of the construction period, and that comes at no cost. It's just an opportunity because we have the crews and the vessels already committed. It's just something that we're going to try to do. So with that, I can summarize, and Tom, you're going to step up here and tell us all about passenger communication.
Kevin. So obviously, we looked at the areas where we're creating the biggest inconvenience to passengers. South San Francisco service, first and foremost, and Chase Center as well. And so we've really focused over the past couple of months developing a robust communications plan to ensure that passengers know what's coming, when it's coming, and what their other options are. So we began that yesterday, 6 weeks before the closure, so that we could give folks plenty of time to plan for it. We've begun to hear from passengers. We're going to make sure we have a good presence in our onboard ferry chats. Raphael Regan from our team has scheduled a number of ferry chats. We'll actually be hitting every morning South San Francisco run on one of the biggest days, so we can directly talk. You know, with about 30 people impacted on the South San Francisco runs on a high day, we think we could talk to each one of them and hear their concerns and give them suggestions. We can serve almost as a concierge service to make sure that they can get to work. However, they're impacted by this. In addition, we'll be really focusing our marketing on the Chase Center service. We will be able to operate, I think, 2 or 3 games from Alameda at the very beginning of the preseason before the regular season begins. Those will be before the closure of Main Street. So we'll be able to talk to those Alameda fans in case they are repeat riders, season ticket holders, or someone like that. So we can let them know they're going to need to go to Oakland to take it. There's also an option to take regular ferry service to and from Seaplane because we have a late trip back to Seaplane and games tend to end in the 9 o'clock hour. There is an option for folks if they're willing to risk the rare quadruple overtime game that they might have to leave early if that's the case. But we'll make sure to message to all of those different passenger groups. Lots of signage at the terminal during the closure, obviously, and lots of work being done between now and October 23rd to make sure that everyone knows what's happening. We will report back to you in a future month as well as to how that communication is going, how many passengers we've been able to reach. And really, as always, welcome your feedback on how we can improve passenger communications.
Thanks. I
answer?
have a quick question. Is there any viability to talking with the private operators to, to contract or collaborate on a temporary service?
There is some viability. They currently don't have a vessel available. They may have one during this period of time. We are actually talking to them about another pilot that is more comfortable within their vessel availability after the new year.
Okay, I just would say, if there's something to be gained there, it would be nice to have an alternative for those people who, even though it's not a whole lot of people who are being impacted in a huge way, and appreciate, that we've taken the steps to create clarity and, the opportunity for alternatives in most cases. It's always best, the more we can do, the better to keep people riding water transit. So anyway, other comments? This is an information item. Comments, questions from board members? Jeff?
All right, I got a question, Jim. With the time that we're asking people and the amount of people we're asking to drive to Oakland, what's the parking capacity like in the parking structure in Oakland? I think is one question. And two, I haven't been over to Oakland in a while. I assume parking is still validated and free in that parking structure.
Yes, in reverse order, the answer is yes. The parking is 12 hours validation. And we've gone through improvements to improve the validation experience recently. That has made it a lot easier for the passengers. And then secondly, we've always had a lot of capacity at the Oakland structure. We have up to 500 cars, and we honestly never even eclipsed it, even during the BART strike days. So we're comfortable that we'll be able to handle additional.
Okay, if we can make sure that's like part of the communication plan too, because I'm sure some people aren't familiar, one, with where to park, and two, that they can validate their ticket and it's free. So that gets communicated.
And I want to thank the team again for finding a way to test a little pilot as part of the Main Street closure during this time. The only takeaway that I want us to think about is that we're not eliminating, and if it's not a successful pilot between Mission Bay and South San Francisco, that it's not eliminating opportunities in the future, since the times of the trips are off during the week. And so I just love it that we're instead of saying no, we're saying yes and find a way to make use of the hours and the service. Thank you.
Okay, others on the item? Alameda? Any
I'll
member?
just add, Chair Wonderman, it's two pilots, one with a TNC partnership, which the board has been asking about previously. And so we're excited to test that out. And we won't, if the South City to Mission Bay pilot is not successful, it won't be in this case, because that route doesn't have potential demand in the future. It's not an ideal time for people to travel on that route. It's just the time that works for us. So we'll be keeping that in mind and make sure we don't make that a metric for success.
Cool. Any member of the public wish to comment on item number 9? Anyone signed up for that?
Signed up.
So in the future, when they come to complain, you say, well, you could have come to the board meeting and signed up on item number 9 and had input. That's you got a great answer for the future. Okay, let's close that item. Thank you for the presentation, and hope it goes.
Chair Wonderman?
Yeah.
We do have someone who has raised their hand in the Zoom.
Oh, great. I can't see it from here. Darn it.
Christy, you can unmute and speak.
Hi, thank you for your time, and thank you to the folks that really try to find ways to help people that's taking the ferry to South SF, any means of alternatives possible. Some background, my wife bites to the Main Street Terminal and takes the ferry to South SF. I know that the current alternative is pretty much like we have to somehow drive to Oakland to take the ferry. And I know the staff has also tried to try to look for alternatives for my wife to get to South SF. So I just want to say, like, I really appreciate if there are like any other possible ways to, just so that we can really try to avoid driving over to Oakland to take the ferry over to South SF. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comment, and I think I'll speak for the staff that, I think we're going to try everything we can to minimize the disruption, and we appreciate that it's not everything we would like it to be, but hopefully we'll minimize it. I see your hand, so thanks you, Christy. Other members of the public wish to speak? Okay, I don't see any others. If anyone else sees any others, shout at me.
Chair Wunderman, just a quick question for Tom and the team. I assume you're coordinating with Genentech and the Oyster Point Coalition, just so that they're aware and think of other ways to potentially get these commuters to work during this time period.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be reaching out to Genentech and the coalition around east of 101, both for the South San Francisco impacts as well as the pilot. We know that they're going to be a key partner. This is not going to be a pilot service that necessarily needs to be mass marketed because we have very distinct communities that we're working with in Mission Bay and in South San Francisco. So we're really going to rely on those employers to help get the word out to their employees who do live in Mission Bay, Dogpatch, other neighborhoods that make it a viable option for them.
Great. And so Christy, I really appreciate the comment, and I would just encourage, I think it was, you said your wife, to just contact the Genentech transportation team and talk to them as well.
All right. Any other further comments from board or public? If not, we'll close the item number 9. We're going to go to item number 12, which is the public comments for non-agendized items. Does any member of the public wish to speak on any item that was not on today's agenda? If you're in the Zoom world, raise your hand. If you're in the room, I can't see you, so stand up, scream out. Has anyone signed up, Thomas, to speak?
No one has signed up.
Anyone wish to make a last-minute gesture? Sly, you want to say something? You've been there a long time. I can see you. Okay, hearing not, we'll close the public comment period, and we are going to go to item number 10. So thank you for coming today, everyone. Item number 10 is a closed session item. WETA will not be holding the closed session as it said on the original agenda to deal with pending litigation. Rather, WETA will be recessing into closed session for public employee performance evaluation, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to government code sections 54957B1 and 54957.6. So I believe the board members are going to, there's a separate room for the board, and then eventually we'll come back here to report out anything that happens in closed session that requires public comment. So I'll see you on the other side. Is that Steve?
Jim, would you have what you need for the separate Zoom link for the closed session?
I believe I do.
Okay, great.
I do. If not, I'll call you, but I think so. I'm gonna leave this. Okay, I think that means we're good to go. So we had the board met in closed session to discuss the compensation and terms of agreement with Executive Director Seamus Murphy. And it's probably, those of you who attend these meetings, it wouldn't probably be surprising that, the board is very supportive of retaining Director Murphy and extending his contract and, making sure that he's satisfied with his employment. We think we're on a roll here at WETA and that we've accomplished a lot, but there's a lot ahead of us, and we want to do it together. So, congratulations, Seamus, and there's been a written employee back and forth employee evaluation. So we've been participating in a process to, make sure that, we're all pretty clear here as to what WETA is trying to accomplish, and that the executive director is, is really on track, and that the board is well informed and so forth. So with that, we've come to some decisions around this, and basically they take three forms. One is that we would like to extend the term of the contract of Seamus Murphy, which ends at the end of calendar year 2023. So that's only in a few months, to 2028. So that would be a 5-year contract extension. And that's one item. The second is we want to increase his salary consistent with the increase of the salaries with the staff. So that's 6%. His current base salary is $304,080. So the new salary would be $322,325. And finally, Director Murphy suggested that we change the timing of his performance evaluation to time with that of his staff. So he's sort of been on a calendar year here, which was a function of the timing of hiring him. But the WETA is actually on a fiscal year calendar. And so their fiscal year begins July 1st. So we want to put Seamus on the same timing so he's aligned with his staff. Did I get that right, Seamus, or am I on for those things?
All correct. Thank you. Yeah.
Makes sense. Stephen Miller, is that got it right? So with that, I'll make a motion to do that. So I move to do what I just said. I don't think I'll have to repeat it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second? And Stephen, do we take public comment on this, or do we just announce an action? I can't hear you, Stephen.
Good idea to take public comment.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. So is there any member of the public who would like to comment on the action proposed to be taken by the WETA board today? Anyone in the room? I can't see the room. I don't know if there's anyone in it. I assume there's people there, but you guys can see them. Anyone in virtual land, which I think is Sly Hunter, and that's all I see. Not that that's a minimal thing, that's important. Okay, if not, let's close the public hearing on the closed session. And any comments from the board you'd like to make? You don't have to. We could just take an action. You can make the ferry.
Just
Okay.
very quickly, again, thank Director Murphy for all of the contributions in the very quick 3 years that have passed so far, and our 2.5 so far, and look forward to a new extension of our partnership together. So thank you to you and all the team.
Thank you. Other directors wish to comment?
Yeah, I think we should call the vote because Pippin's ready to go.
Yeah. Okay, if that's the case, I don't want to shut anybody off, but this is important. This is a momentous occasion for WETA. Really is. It's a big deal. So with that, go ahead, Thomas, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Absolutely, yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba, Director Delboni.
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
The item passes.
All right, congratulations. And with that, I shall, the most important responsibility of the chair is to be able to adjourn the meeting. So I hereby adjourn the meeting and look forward to working with all you folks going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.